Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I ended up serving 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and also some good insight on things related to prison, and I'm going to share a little bit with y'all today. If you happen to like this story, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe to the channel, and most definitely be sure to hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you will be notified ASAP. Like I told y'all too, don't get it twisted, man. I be rapping. The flow is nothing like Curtis Blow. All you gotta do, go to my YouTube, hit playlists, then scroll down to gas stations. You can hear some of my music there. I got a song called Never Gave Me Therapy. It's on all major streaming sites. I got a video for that. I got a video for a song called Go From Here. A few things, man. So just check me out up there. You'll definitely see that I gas, man. But let's hop right up into this discussion right here. Now, from time to time, I get a lot of comments and people asking me, what is the relationship like in prison between the Crips and the Bloods? I don't know if some people are old enough to remember the movie Colors and things like that, and back when it was traditional gang banging. And when I say traditional gang banging, because things are a whole lot different, back now as opposed to how they was back then. But to me, traditional gang banging, of course, is when Crips and Bloods was just basically on-site enemies, wherever they ran across each other, especially on the streets. You could have, you could be a Crip from one city and you run across a Blood from, 3 hours away. And just by the fact that you guys was on opposing sides of the rag, that would be your enemy. It was like natural enemies or whatever, and so now by the time I hit the pen, it wasn't no longer, on-site beef between the Crips and the Bloods. I heard back years before I came, things were a little different, but now when I hit the pen, it wasn't like that. But let's first start with the county jail. Now, in the county jail, and I was arrested in 94, a lot of that stuff still carried on. But now let's keep in mind today too. Now today, it gang banging and all that type of stuff has got quite far away to what I refer to as traditional gang banging. Now you definitely have a lot of Crip on Crip violence. You have a lot of blood on blood violence that was definitely unheard of back in my day, 96. Now, when I say unheard of, I'm talking about one blood hood versus another blood hood. You always had Bloods who may get into a fight or fight each other, or Crips who may get into a fight and fight each other, because that is the nature of a gang member. The nature of a gang member and the nature of a gang, period, is basically that, I'm tougher than you, my hood is tougher than yours, and that's what creates the gang beefs, and that's what creates the dissension, the fights and stuff like that. That ideology, individuals not wanting to back down to another individual. So, of course, like I say, nowadays though, you have a lot of, now it's more, sometimes it's kind of like, this gang is not just getting along with that gang. You may have Crips and Blood gangs now, or at least out here in California, who they're not beefing on the fact that this dude is a Crip and this dude is a Blood, so I mean, you still have some hoods that's going on like that, and sometimes not, but back in my day, like I say, when I got arrested in 1994, that still carried on in the county jail, the traditional gang banging. Because like I say, let's keep in mind, man, traditional gang banging is about being aggressive, it's cracking on sight. And today, what I notice is it's very different when, you have dudes, Crips hollering out cuz, and you have Bloods hollering out blood. Back then, a Crip calling a Blood cuz or vice versa, that was basically just it was an outright challenge. Nowadays, I'll see Bloods and Crips talking to each other in the Blood. He'll say, hey man, yeah, I'm talking to Blood right here, and the Crip don't even get offended, or vice versa. Like I said, back in my days, man, that was an outright challenge, and that was almost on the level of an individual dissing your hood, because like I said, back then, Bloods and Crips, man, they was, natural on-site enemies, for the most part. And so, you know, individual didn't want to hear that. They used to call it getting his ear busted. For a Crip to be cousin around a Bloods didn't want to hear that, and they took it as an outright challenge. And so like I say, that stuff happened, and it went on in the county jail. Dudes getting into it with each other, because for the most part, they would keep the Crips and Bloods separated. Me specifically speaking, for I went to jail in Riverside County, and so they had a Crip tank. I don't believe they had a Blood tank, but they would put the Bloods in another tank. But now with the GPs, like with other races and stuff. But there were times, when Bloods and Crips were in the same holding tank and didn't just outright trip. But like I say, back then in the traditional gang banging, there was another thing. It was called hitting a person up. So basically, hey, what's up, homie? Where you from? And then of course, if a Blood hit a Crip up, the Crip gonna say, well, yeah, I'm from whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop, I'm a Crip. Then the Blood gonna say where he from. Then it's gonna be automatic tension in the area, and more than likely it was gonna lead to, getting cracking. So like I say, that definitely went on, especially in the county. But now, once I left the county, and they sent me to what's known as a reception center. And a reception center is basically a prison where you're going to be diagnosed, analyzed, and they're going to determine what type of housing that you need. And it was there that I started, seeing everything was different. And an older dude by the name of Dan Tanner, who happened to be a Crip from Long Beach Insane, real respected dude. Me and him was real cool in the county. So he started, giving me some advice and information on how the penitentiary goes and stuff like that. And so it was then, though, at the reception center that I started noticing, and it was explained to me that there was a different level of respect, basically due to, for the most part, that blacks had to at least get along and be somewhat cordial, because now it was more of like a racial type thing. And so what I say, it was a different type of level of respect. Like, you may have places that were considered neutral places, like maybe the Wait Pal or the Chow Hall, where you're going to have Crips and Bloods, so the thing was, back then, a Crip couldn't come into Chow Hall and see one of his homeboys and holler out, hey, what's up, cuz? Because, of course, you had Bloods in the Chow Hall. They gonna hear you hollering, what's up, cuz? And they gonna feel disrespected. Or you could have one of them maybe possibly holler out, yeah, what's up, Blood? Who you talking to? Then, of course, you're gonna have the back and forth or whatever, and then it was gonna lead to something. Of course, then it was gonna lead to something that was bigger than just the two individuals who was going back and forth. And so for that reason, people tried to be respectful, in neutral places. Now, say now outside, the Bloods may had an area where they hung out at, and then maybe about, 50, 70 feet away, depends on how the yard was set up. You may have some Crips who hung out, it was a whole bunch of them used to kick it over there. Now, it was cool for them to be Blood and cousin in their respective areas, you know what I'm saying? But just in the in certain areas where it was going to be a potential neutral gathering, it was a whole lot of respect. But I noticed by the time I left prison, 2018, and even a lot before that, you no longer had that respect. You had a lot of like dudes, younger dudes, or whoever, cousin and blooding on the basketball court, or in the Chow Hall. It's just places that's going to lead to be a potential problem. And see, the bad thing about that is, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just going to be between the two individuals that's hollering cousin Blood. It's going to be, between a lot of individuals. So that was the reason that people was trying to nip that in the bud. Now, I did notice that when I was in prison, one big problem starter between the Crips and the Bloods was tattoos, and especially whackouts. People may have they may have a tattoo on their arm or their chest, or wherever, they neck of their hood, and say they may have a letter crossed out, and the letter that they may have crossed out is either it represents someone else's hood or is significant to that hood and stuff like that. And so, like I say, for the most part, people would hit prison and they would leave the street beefs on the street. Especially, like, say you may have a Crip from one city, and there was a blood from maybe 2 hours away, and they had no problems, so they would just, basically uh, get along. But now you may have a certain Crip whose respective enemy, maybe 4 or 5 minutes away from his hood, and they're on the same yard together. And sometimes that street stuff doesn't always stay on the street, depending on what they may have went through. You may have this individual who's in here for killing this dude's homeboy, his brother, his cousin, or whatever, and whatever individual took the loss may have felt that was just something he just couldn't, his cripping or his blood and just couldn't allow him to be on the yard with that same dude and not, try to get some revenge or whatever. But like I said, tattoos, it was always a potential problem starter, man. I remember it was 2 different gangs from a city and out of Watts, and for the most part they was kicking it, even though they was Crips and Bloods, because they had whatever reason decided to leave, the banging and the bull stuff on the street. But then one individual got up there and he saw that another individual from the opposing side had his hood on his neck crossed out, and so he wasn't going for it, even though the majority of his homeboys had got up there and they wasn't tripping. He wasn't going for it, so he chose, the fire on old boy, hit him right in the face, and that was that. Old boy who had the hood crossed out didn't even end up not even wanting to fight and stuff. So, but like I said, man, the tattoos was always a potential problem, and especially if you had a fresh tattoo, say you had been on the yard for maybe about a year or 2 or something like that. Then all of a sudden you come to the yard, you got this new tattoo on you. You got you either got the C's or the B's crossed out, and you may have some dudes, who looking at you like, hey man, dude just got that tattoo, so then stuff like that was gonna be a potential problem, because like I said, traditional gang banging was centered and based upon what we used to call back then set tripping. And basically set tripping is one individual from one set tripping on somebody else just for the simple fact that he's from another set that their hood didn't get along with, And so I seen some cold tattoos, to be honest, man. Sometimes back in the day we used to also call them eye busters, man. And dudes may have other dudes' hoods crossed out, or disrespectful terms for other people's hoods and this and that, man. But to keep it real, man, I think one of the most disrespectful tattoos that I've seen, a blood, and the blood sometimes refer to themselves as dogs or B dogs. This one particular blood, he had a pit bull on his arm, and inside the pit bull's mouth was a crab, which of course is a disrespectful term for Crips. And the pit bull was eating on the crab, and so that was an extremely disrespectful tattoo. He didn't get into any fights on the yard that I was on behind that tattoo, but I can imagine he probably did, and dude was a cool dude though. He was a blood and he was cool with a lot of Crips. I was cool with him, and we worked in the kitchen together and stuff like that, and so I think that a lot of the drama between the Crips and the Bloods, especially like just the getting into it with an individual because he was a Blood or a Crip, a lot of that I believe was prevented by the older, old dudes, OGs, or whoever on the yard, because your conduct had to be up to par, man. They wasn't gonna allow an individual to run around set tripping, tripping on individuals or whatever, because it's never gonna stay just between them 2 individuals when it's a Crip or a Blood. Sometimes 2 Crips will get into it and they'll take, a head of fade, and it'll stay between them, even if they're from opposing hoods, or maybe 2 Bloods will get into it. But when you have a Crip and a Blood, 9.5 times out of 10, if they happen to get into it, of course their respective homeboys is going to show up to support them, and it's going to turn into a melee or a riot. And so for that reason, like I said, you had a lot of the OGs, man, on their homeboys, and they held them responsible, and made them be accountable for their actions. It's like I said, a certain code of conduct. It's just certain things you can't do in prison, because it affects a lot of other people. You got a lot of other people in there getting visits. You got people getting ready to go home, possibly. You got people getting, in there maybe selling drugs, hustling, making money, and They don't want that disturbed by one individual's lack of control, lack of self-control, So of course now if he gets into it with somebody, his homies is gonna ride with him, especially, back in my day. But then later on, once they get to the hole, they gonna figure out what happened. And in the event they feel that his actions was unjustified, he definitely is gonna be disciplined and stuff like that. So and then there was many a times, man, when Crips and Bloods are in prison over a period of time, they develop rapport with each other. Like I say, I had many friends, man, who were Bloods, many friends. And it just comes from, doing time. You're locked up with a person, you guys are in the same building. You might go outside to the yard, play basketball. Dudes are in the building, they playing cards, they gambling, stuff like that. So eventually, like I said, you develop a rapport with certain individuals, and that Crip and Blood stuff to a certain degree goes out the window. So and then also you got to realize that over a certain period of time, individuals mature. When a dude goes to the yard, for the most part, he gonna hang with his respective, his homies, his car. So if you're a Blood, you'll probably be out there kicking it with the Bloods and stuff. But there's many times I done seen Crips and Bloods hanging out on the yard, chilling, just walking and talking with each other, whether they smoking weed, whether they, reminiscing, because a lot of these individuals, you may be a Crip, but you may have cousins, or your younger brother even sometimes could be from a Blood hood, or maybe you was dating somebody who was from, an opposing hood. So individuals from that other side, and you guys get to talking, and you get to reminiscing and stuff like that. So I just think that it's different possibly in other states, that the Crip and Blood beef is still on site. And then a lot of people have this image of California, being somewhat similar to the movie Colors. And like I say, back in the early 80s, even the mid 80s, all through the 80s, and some of the 90s, it definitely was like that. But over time, things have in some different areas in California have now developed more into just basically gang beef. Like I said, before I left in 2018, and I'm not gonna put their hoods out there or whatever, but there was a Crip and a Blood hanging together, because the Crip and the Blood, their hoods had beef with, basically their enemies was the same. Their enemies was the same. So they had chose to click up and kick back, or not necessarily click up, but they had, put their beef to the side strictly based on the colors, and so they sitting at the table talking with each other, cousin and blooding each other. So as far as California goes, that stuff has kind of died out a little bit. And then once again too, it all depends on what institution you're in. At that point in time, when I was seeing that, I was on a level 2. So level 2 is basically minimum security. They have a level 1, level 2, level 3, a level 4. That's how the California prison system works. And so of course, the higher the security, you have more things going on. You have possibly more violence on the level 4s, more serious violence, I would say. On the level 1s and level 2s, you have a lot of fist fights and stuff like that. And so it just all depends on what institution that you're at. But even on the level 4, when I was on the level 4, you had Crips and Bloods, talking and stuff. Like I say, when I first got to the reception center, they put me in the cell with a Blood, and most prisons won't house Crips and Bloods together in California. But Tehachapi, they didn't care, so they basically just throw you in the cell and y'all figure it out. Y'all do what you gonna do, So they happened to throw me in the cell with an individual, and who happened to be a Blood. And like I said, we had no problems, man. We chopped it up, chilled, all that type of stuff. So later on down the line, when I got to other prisons, every now and then, they may throw you in a cell with a Blood or whatever, and then you could get at the police and just let them know, hey man, whenever I get a chance, man, I need to be moved up out of here and stuff like that. Or sometimes, you'd have individuals who would refuse to be housed with, somebody from the opposing color. And especially reason for that being is because anything could kick off on the yard, even while you in there in them first couple of days. And then of course, you'll definitely have a potential problem, and so it just all depends. But to answer the question of the individuals who's asked me about the relationships with the Crips and the Bloods in California, no, it's definitely not on site. It's definitely not just a outward beef when you see when a blood sees a Crip in the California prison system. Like I say, for the most part, man, people is in there chilling together. Now you may have too what we used to call super Crips or super Bloods, and those were dudes who was just real. They was real aggressive and deep into their gang banging and deep into representing their hood and deep into their hate for the enemy or whoever they considered to be the enemy. And so, like I say, it all just depends on the individual. You're gonna have some individuals who not gonna, you're gonna have some Crips who just gonna keep to themselves or keep to other Crips. They're not gonna interact with other Bloods and vice versa. You're gonna have some Bloods who, that's super banged out, super Bloods, and they on their gang banging stuff, because like I say, that is the nature of gang banging. So, but me over time, I matured, and I had a lot of good blood friends. Since I've been out, I've had a couple of them come to my house. So like I say, we mature. We put that stuff past us, and we look at the bigger picture of we both individuals in here who signed up to something when we was kids. And so we're not gonna let that stop our growth or whatever. I got a I was friends with many Bloods in there, man. Maybe I'll shout out a couple of them, man. Psych from Bounty Hunter, Snuff from Two P's, Johnny Baker, Cass from the Jungle. Just many. I can go on and on and on. Many different individuals, man, who I got to be cool with over a period of time. And so yeah, that's the answer to the question right there, though, man. There's definitely not a on-site beef in California with the Crips and the Bloods in prison, man. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed that, man. You already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to Life. Resume normal program.